Okay, is this on? Okay, so hi guys, welcome. This is Lisa here, and since this is Valentine's week, I decided to review a movie. Now, I may have brought this movie up a billion times before, but since it's reaching its anniversary this year, I might as well go into depth about this movie because this movie to me is the most underrated rom-coms I've ever seen, and you could say it's kind of like the OG Enchanted. You pretty much know the rom-com I'm talking about. It is, of course, Kate and Leopold. So for those of you that have not seen this movie, scroll up. If you have seen the movie, then feel free and watch this review, this commentary I'm doing. So I know how long this is going to be, so just stick around and enjoy. So let's begin. So the movie, of course, is directed by James Mangold, the guy who gave us Logan, the Wolverine, Walk the Line, and of course it has Meg Ryan, Hugh Jackman, Breckin Meyer, Leo Schreiber, Kirsten Shaw in her movie debut. You have Viola Davis as a police officer, and you have Bradley Whitford in it. And the movie is, of course, as follows. So, in the beginning of the movie, we see this guy called Leopold, Duke of Albany, played by Hugh Jackman, sporting a British accent. And he, of course, arrives on the scene from England to New York in 1876 because his uncle, Millard, played by Paxton Whitehead, wants him to marry a wealthy bride because he's actually broke, like Leopold is broke, despite the fact he's actually an inventor. And he, of course, is like, okay, like you can clearly tell he does not want to marry this woman that his uncle wants him to marry because she's rich, and of course he wants to marry someone he actually loves, you know what I mean? So during this thing, it's like a bridal waltz party that he has that his uncle is setting up for him. He spots this guy called Stuart Bezer, played by Leo Schreiber. Now, before I continue this review, there's actually two different versions of this movie, right? So the first version of the movie is it's revealed that Stuart is actually Leopold's great great grandfather. So Stuart is actually the great great grandson of Leopold, Duke of Albany. But in the theatrical version, which is the only version that's always shown in streaming services and TV, whenever it's on TV, uh, they cut that entirely because in the end of the movie, spoiler alert, when Meg Ryan actually goes back in time, she actually becomes Stuart's great great grandmother. And that's why they decided to cut that version. But James Mangold, fair reduced to him, he actually added that as part of the Blu-ray version only. And on DVD, you can watch as an alternative. You can either watch the director's cut or theatrical cut. My personal favourite, which is a bit of a shocker to some, is actually the director's cut. I prefer the director's cut a mile because it actually makes more sense than the theatrical version. So let's continue. So Leopold, of course, is there dancing with different women because he is there seeking a bride, and he, of course, decides to investigate and see Stuart actually his heirloom. He's like office forever, and he says many dreams are useless. And then Stuart is like, "Oh crap!" And then Leopold's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, he kind of like stumbles with his words, and he escapes. And of course, Leopold decides to follow Stuart through the Brooklyn Bridge, through the East River, and he accidentally falls into the Brooklyn Bridge, into the East River because it has this like wormhole portal, and he actually ends up in 2001. And whatever version you watch, by the way, we then cut to Meg Ryan's character, Kate McKay, who is this no nonsense businesswoman, marketing executive. And in the director's cut, we see her in this like test screening for a romantic comedy called Love Across Sale. Yeah, Love Across Sale. And the lead actress was actually in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Shiloh Harlow is her name. She was in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And the movie, of course, is unsuccessful because the female lead is actually not likable. And James Mangold's character, Richard, he's in this movie too, as a cameo as a director. He says to Meg Ryan's character, "You're stuck in the life of American cinema." And she's like, "Well, she's not, well, I'm not the main protagonist in the motion picture." And he says to her, "Oh, have you never stepped to the right guy or not? Like, did you make a mistake? Did you ever make a mistake in life?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm not the main protagonist in the motion picture. And it says it's people like you that suck in the life of American cinema. And I'm like, you know what? This guy actually has a point. And then, of course, she's in the taxi with Darcy, played by Natasha Lyonne, and she's there giving about Stuart because she says, oh, he couldn't stoop down and get a job like the rest of us, and she has to pay his rent all the time. And of course, she's getting pissed off with him basically. And then we see her in her like apartment, and she's there like trying to take a bath, and she hears this like noise upstairs, and she's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then she literally goes up, like she's literally like down the stairs, and he's upstairs, her ex boyfriend, which is kind of bizarre that she's still living her like near her ex boyfriend, which I was told bonkers. So she's there anyway, climbing up the fire extinguisher. She's like, "Oh my god." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I saw her." He's like, "Oh yeah, it's him in case you're wondering, like you and your old business group." And then she's like, "Oh, you know what, Stuart? I blew my best years with you." And he's like, "Those were your best." And he says, "Look, I'm sorry, you can get your Palm Pilot in the morning," because she wants her Palm Pilot because Stuart has a Palm Pilot. Why he has a Palm Pilot, I have no idea. And then she complains about, "Oh yeah, we were together for 4 years, and we're not, and I'm not your girlfriend anymore. I haven't been for a whole month now. You can tell me the truth," because she doesn't believe Stuart for 1 second that Stuart has found a crack in the fabric of time. That he actually studied. Like no one kind of knows like how long he has studied doing this thing, like doing this research of time travel, and how he's so fascinated with his great grandfather. And then, of course, Leopold wakes up the next day and he spots this like TV show called The Prison or something. And he's like, "Otis, Otis, Otis." And Stuart is like, "Okay, it's alright, dude, it's okay." He goes, "Oh, where am I?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, there's not an easy explanation for this." And he's like, "Oh, it's a ransom my uncle won't pay in center, so I despise." And then he says, "Okay, where the hell am I?" And then, of course, Kate, of course, comes the next day and she's like, "Oh, I'm afraid it is." Because he says, "That's, sir, it's not New York." And Kate McKay's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm afraid it is." And Stuart and Leopold is kind of like, "Huh, that girl looks actually familiar. I thought I saw her before." And to spoil for you guys, he actually did see her before, because what Leopold is actually witnessing is actually like a reset. So think of Groundhog Day with Billy Murray and Andy McDowell in that film where Billy Murray had to relive the same day over and over and over again, or 51st Dates where Drew Barrymore had to relive the same day over and over and over again. It's literally the same with Leopold, because he did see Kate McKay before, because in the director's cut he actually bumped into her because she was going into the bridal party while he was running after Stuart in the director's cut. But the theatrical cut is actually cut entirely. So then, of course, there's this other subplot where Stuart actually falls down a elevator shaft and he breaks a few bones in his legs and everything, and he is in hospital for like a full week. And then he later goes to a mental institution because no one believes him that he's a time traveler who brought his great great grandfather to modern day New York by accident. And then he later realised that it wasn't an accident. He meant to bring his great great grandfather to modern day New York. And while Stuart, of course, is in the hospital, Kate and Leopold, they kind of start to bond. Like at first, like Kate's like, "Okay, you're too good to be true." And when she first meets him, he kind of like blocks her way, and she's like, "Okay, this is not complex." He forgot to give me the point thing. He's like, "I've been warned about you." She's like, "Oh really? Well, what pretty does a great man won't say?" And he says, "Oh, but you're dangerous to hardly look at. I take it you're a career woman." She's like, "Yeah, market research." She's like, "My fine avocation, market research, pep from my mind." And she's like, "You're tripping, Lyle." And he says, "I once quoted a librarian in Sussex." And she's like, "Oh, good for you." And he says to her, "I feel like we met on a previous occasion." She's like, "Well, Lionel, seeing as Stuart has not many friends, I'm not sure he has any. I don't think that's possible." And like I said, there he actually did see her before, but she has yet to go into his world. So yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but she was meant to be with him all along. And then like Leopold, of course, comes to, like, he goes outside for the first time and he brings Bart the dog out for a walk, and of course the dog poos, and Viola Davis shows up, which is funny by the way, because she actually worked with Hugh Jackman in Prisoners in 2013, and she says, "Are you going to remove that?" And goes, "I beg your pardon." She's like, you just pick up the poop and throw it in the trash, and he goes, absolutely not. And then she's like, oh, may I remind you that it's against the law to leave that there. It's like, are you suggesting, madam, there's a law for kin and bowel movements? And she's like, that's just to pick the poop up and throw it in the trash. And he's like, oh, I refuse respectfully. And then she's like, okay, what's your name, fancy pants? He's like, Leopold, Alexis Elijah Thomas Garrett Mountbatten. And then she's like, okay, Stuart, have a nice day, because she thinks his name's Stuart. And he looks at her as if to say, my name isn't Stuart. And then we realise that Kate is working as well as like testing movies. She's also testing out for other stuff as well. Like she's doing a commercial at the minute for Farmer's Bounty, which is a diet butter. And she has this boss man called JJ, played by Bradley Whitford. And let me tell you, he is the most snarky jerk I have ever seen in a film. I mean, he's always there kind of like being flirtatious towards her, and he's like kind of wants to have sex with her, and she's like, no, we're just like business partners, that's all. And he kind of wants more of her, but she has no interest in him at all. Like she's just there doing her job, and that's pretty much it. And we kind of realize throughout Kate's life that she actually hates her job with a burning passion, because she gets zero credit for anything she does. And like I said there, her boss is always kind of like being flirtatious and being a total asshole to her and saying, oh yeah, you're like a man. And she's like, oh, what? You look like a man, like, because she's always wearing masculine clothes, because throughout the entire film, right up until the end, she was wearing like nothing but like trouser suits and a white blouse, and she kind of has like really like straight shaggy hair. And let me tell you, Meg Ryan's hairstyle in this film was absolutely god awful. I said to myself, did her son Jack Quaid just go into the trailer and just like grab this pair of scissors and just chopped her hair? And she's like, oh my god, you ruined my hair. And Jack was like, I'm sorry, Mom. I mean, it was such an awful haircut, but then when she had it up in the bun in the end, it actually was a lot better. And then after that, we see Breckin Meyer, played by Breckin Meyer's character is Charlie McKay, and he's a young actor who's home from actors boot camp. And when he first sees Leopold, he actually thinks that Leopold is actually a actor, like a method actor, unaware to Charlie, but he's actually the real deal. Is actually a joke from the like a man out of time, a Duke of Albany, and him and Leopold get on very well together. Like Leopold later on kind of gives him advice on how to woo a woman and what flowers to give a woman and write a letter to a woman and all this stuff. And I'm like, this man is like a walking green flag. Do you know what? Hugh Jackman in this movie kind of low-key gives me Mr. Darcy vibes, and I think James Mangold kind of had Pride and Prejudice as his main setting for this movie, because this movie has like Pride and Prejudice written all over it, except it has like a sci-fi twist to it, if you know what I mean. So then Leopold like nearly sets Stuart's apartment up on fire because he sets off the alarms, and because saying, that thing is a damn hazard, and she's like, it's just a toaster, and goes, oh, inserting bread, and and then he said something about like woken up to a warm British marmalade and fresh creamery, but you understand life is full of tasks but taste. And then she is like has this idea to have Leopold as her spokesperson for Farmer's Bounty, and he's a success with the commercial. And then there's like one scene then where this robber like steals Kate's bag, and of course he has to like run, like he has this like he grabs the white horse off the horse cart, and then he like chases the burglar, like the thief, like straight through Central Park with Kate in his side. And it was just so funny that part. He goes, oh, give me your hand. She's like, my watch your hand, woman. It was such a funny scene. And then after that, then like she, like herself and him, they go on the horse cart together, and she says, are you for real? And he's like, I beg your pardon. She's like, are you for real? And he says, I believe so. And she's like, you're a Duke. And he's like, oh, I was never born a Duke, I never felt like one. And then, of course, you can clearly tell that they're kind of starting to like each other. And Kate then goes to like some dinner meeting with her boss, JJ, unaware that JJ thinks that this is a date, but it's not a date at all. It's just basically working business. But he of course doesn't want that. Like he kind of wants her to he kind of wants to date her, and he says like really weird shit to her. And then Charlie and Leopold, they go to some nightclub, and then Charlie kind of realizes that Leopold is starting to fall in love with Kate, and he's like, "Oh, you're being ridiculous. Like I'm not falling for her," but he actually is falling in love with her. And then of course they crash. Kate's meeting with JJ, and of course Leopold gets pissed off at JJ, saying, "Oh, did you ever hear of Bohème?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of Bohème, and it's written in Italian." And the man's like, he thinks it's written in French first, and it's not written in French at all. It's written in Italian. And Leopold, of course, puts him in his place and goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, Le Bohème is actually written in Italian, not written in French." And then, of course, he feels bad after that because he kind of ruined Kate's meeting with JJ, and he writes her this like love letter, and he kind of wants her to meet him at the rooftop at Friday at 8 o'clock, and she actually does go. At first she's kind of like, nah, I don't want to go, just like, and go to this invite with Leopold, like. But Darcy's like, okay, you have to, like, you're literally turning down an offer with this guy, like, and he did nothing wrong with you, like. So she's like, you know what, I might as well go to this thing, and she actually does go, and she has this, like, black lace dress that she never wore, and I was like, it took you until now to wear the dress. And then she kind of we kind of see another side to Kate we never saw before, because she kind of opens up to Leopold saying, oh, I'm not great with men. He's like, maybe I haven't found the right one. And she's like, maybe it's the whole love version of Santa Claus. And then Leopold up and tells her that he was supposed to marry a bride the night he followed Stuart, because he's broke apparently. And Kate's like, oh, is it for charm? He's like, it's actually for money. And since his parents died, his family's now depleted, and he was going to marry someone, but he had no idea who his bride was. Unbeknown to him that his bride is actually right in front of him the whole time. And then Kate gets kind of a bit nervous, and then she kind of leaves, and he's like, oh, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm just cleaning up. And he's like, would you like a dance? And they start dancing, and she starts laughing, and he starts smiling at her, and then she's like, oh, this is lovely, but I don't think I could leave, even if I am inspired to jump. People might think I'm brave, but I'm not. And it's as brave simply does the clearest vision, glory and danger like, and not going to stand to meet it. And then they kiss for the first time. And then the following day, he actually like makes her toast with like strawberries and mascarpone. And Cher's like, oh, how was your date with Kate? And he's like, good, nice. How was your date with Patrice? And Cher's like, good, nice. And then Cher says, so Leo, won't you tell me who you are? And he's like, what do you mean? And like, it's fun doing a whole like joke thing, like 24/7, but I kind of afraid that this could be like Stuart II. And he's like, I understand where you're coming from. And then Cher asks him again, who are you? And he says, I'm the man who loves your sister. And then he gives Kate like the strawberry mascarpone toast and coffee, and she literally cries. And then says to her, what are we going to do today? And they decide to tour around New York. Like, they go to this kind of like, what you call it? They go kind of like sightseeing, like I said. And then Leopold spots his uncle's home. And he says, oh, Kate, come. And she's like, what, where are you bringing me to? And he's like, oh yeah, this is my uncle's home. And was my uncle's home, and then he sees a portrait of himself, and then he kind of goes to his headquarters, and then Kate says to him, oh, what are you doing? Because he goes around the corner, and there's this like skirting board, and he rips the skirting board out from the wall, and there's this like thing, like all his possessions, and inside is a ring, like a ruby ring, and he says, oh, this is my mother's ring, and she's like, oh, this is beautiful. And then she says to him then, like, when they were outside then, like, near the Brooklyn Bridge, East River, that walkway, she says, I've been connecting bridges all my life, and I've been living here for 10 years and never crossed them. He says, you never travelled? And she's like, no. And then she says to him, oh, do you miss where you're from? And he's like, in a way, I miss this rhythm. And she's like, was it slower? And he goes, quite a bit slower, like today. And he's like, yes. And then James Mangold does a thing where he uses the Sun Moon River from Breakfast at Tiffany's. And Kate's character says to Leopold, did you ever see the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's? And he's like, no, I never saw Breakfast at Tiffany's before. And she explains to him that there's this guy that listens to the soundtrack every single night before he goes to sleep at 12 o'clock. And then he turns his light off, goes to sleep, and does the same thing the next night. And then she's all snuggly duckly with Leopold. And then she says, like, oh, I want more of this, more 1876. He's like, well, Katie, don't work on Sunday. We can have more. And she's like, yeah, well, tomorrow's the day before I work, so it gets poisoned. And then he tries to propose to her, and let me tell you, it was like the sweetest proposal I've seen, because you can see like that Leopold is trying to not like break down in tears, like he's kind of afraid that he'd be a disappointment to Kate. And then when he looks down when he's trying to propose to her, she's actually fast asleep. And then he tucks her into bed, and then he finally says he loves her while she's asleep. And I was like, you couldn't say that when she was awoke, like when she woke up. And then the next day, anyway, there's this big commercial anyway that's now like coming, like the commercial. Sorry, it's now arrived. And when Leopold actually tastes the butter, he thinks it's absolutely disgusting. He's like, "Oh, this is revolting." And they have a huge argument outside because Leopold is like, "Okay, is it to do at work here to refine lies to deceive people? It's no wonder you dread your work week." And he's trying to kind of persuade her to quit her job because he knows straight away that that's why she's so miserable all the time, and she doesn't even want to hear of it. She said, "Oh yeah, I don't want to take advice from 200-year-old men, and if I had to pot a little pumpkin to get one, then so be it." I mean, of course, they fell out anyway, but of course, in the nick of time, Stuart actually escapes the asylum, because he's actually in a mental asylum because the doctors thought that he was being a little cuckoo. So then Stuart anyway, of course, leaves the mental institution, and he says to Leopold, "Okay, I know a few things have happened during the week, we have to go back." So Leopold, of course, has to go back to 1876, leaving 2001 heartbroken, I guess. And then Kate, of course, thinks that Leopold is there, but he's not there because he went back in time again. And then we had come to a plot twist, if you can say, where Kate McKay was actually meant to go back in time at Leopold, because, like I said there in my intro, she was actually there the night he was going to announce his bride, but when he followed Stuart, he couldn't actually announce Kate McKay as bride, so that's why the whole twist was it was Kate all along and not Miss Trey of Connecticut. So then there's this big do that Kate has because JJ, the sexist boss, he gives Kate another promotion for senior vice president, and of course she's ecstatic by this. And she rings up the phone, like, thinking that Leopold is there, and, "Oh yeah, Leopold, I got the job, and I'm a new senior vice president at CRG, and oh, I'm sorry for the way things were, and I hope to see you later, and I miss you." And of course, like I said there, Charlie saw the photo and said, "Oh yeah, it's Stuart, oh yeah, he's for real, like Leopold is for real." And like I said there, when Charlie actually saw the photo of Kate, meaning that Kate had to go back in time tonight. So then, of course, Kate, of course, is there, like, doing her speech, and then she sees the photo of herself, and she's like, says to herself, "Do you know what? Screw this job in marketing. I'm after Leopold, Duke of Albany. Fuck this job in marketing." She doesn't say that, but she has this, like, big speech going, "Oh yeah, what if someone came along who knew exactly without asking, they just knew, they could feel your heartbeat and listen to your thoughts, and what if they weren't so sure of themselves and they loved you and you hesitated?" And then she's like, "I gotta go. I'm sorry, I gotta go." And then she has to cross the girder and jump off the Brooklyn Bridge through the East River, and that's it. And then, of course, Leopold, of course, is about to announce Miss Tracy's wife. But then, after that, then Kate, of course, arrives in time. And then he's like, oh, Kate McKay, the McKay's home. She's like, Mazapekwa. He's like, Mazapekwa. And then they love each other. They say they love each other. And then that's the movie in a nutshell. And that's the movie. So yeah, what I think about this movie. Okay, when I first saw this film first, way back in 2004, I thought it was a really cute, dumb movie. But then when I got older, I started to appreciate it more, and now it's actually my favorite film. There, I said it. This movie is now my favorite film of all time because it plays like a dumb rom com, but it's actually more than that. Like it's got so much potential involved. And I think the reason why this movie actually works is because of Hugh Jackman. Because this guy, by the way, is known for being Wolverine for like the last 17 years of his career. He's always playing Wolverine. In like if you notice his filmography, it's nothing but X-Men and the Wolverine spin-offs. But here he did a fantastic job as Leopold, Duke of Albany, and his British accent was spot on. And fun fact is that he's actually half British in real life because both his parents were actually from England, and his parents had to move from England to Sydney, Australia in the 60s because of some thing that was going on. And then of course his mum left him, and long story short, and then he of course was born in Sydney, and his father of course minded Hugh way like all through his life. And then another fun fact as well is that James Mangold, the director of this movie, would later work with Hugh Jackman again twice in X-Men spin-offs, like I said, The Wolverine, which came out in 2013, and Logan, which came out in 2017, which was the final Wolverine movie, but spoiler alert, it wasn't. He went on to do Deadpool and Wolverine. Hugh did. And I thought his chemistry with Meg Ryan was actually cute. It kind of gives me Pride and Prejudice vibes. Like you could say that Meg Ryan in this movie is a modern day version of Elizabeth Bennet, and Hugh Jackman was like Mr. Darcy to a T, because he kind of acts like Mr. Darcy, not like in a spoof, but kind of like his own spin on Mr. Darcy, and no more than Meg using her, like having her own spin as Elizabeth Bennet. And also cinematography is very, very good as well. Like I love the fact it starts off in 1876 and then 2001. And a lot of critics didn't really get the whole time travel thing, but the more I watched the movie, I kind of realised how the time travel worked. Because if you notice in the movie, there's a lot of chimes involved, and the music is kind of a dead giveaway as well. And the fact that the song Moon River, which was played near the end of the movie, was also foreshadowing Kate's fate as well with Leopold, if you know what I mean, because James Mangold's favourite movie was actually Breakfast at Tiffany's. And another thing as well, when I was listening to the commentary like there last year, James was saying that he kind of wanted the movie to have like a 1950s screwball rom-com vibe to it, that kind of like Doris Day, Cary Grant vibe. And he actually said that Meg Ryan was like Doris Day and Hugh Jackman was like Cary Grant. And I can actually see it, like I can actually know where he's coming from, because he kind of wants that kind of 1960s vibe to it. And he said that the Breakfast at Tiffany's was an influence, and the Apartment, and even Tootsie was an influence as well, with the whole New York setting. And there's also a song at the end of the movie by Sting, Until, which of course won Best Song in Golden Globes, and was nominated for an Academy Award as well. And but you know what? I really, really dug this movie. You know, I thought it was actually very, very nice. The story was actually charming. Like the romance is very cute. Again, like I said, my favorite version of this movie is the director's cut, which makes a lot more sense than the theatrical cut. Is there anything else I can say before I wrap up this video? But yeah, does this movie still hold up after 25 years? I think it actually does. Some people might think it's plain stupid. Everyone has their own dislikes and their own likes. But to me, I thought it was actually a very, very clever rom-com. And I don't really get to see much of these movies anymore. Like the last movie that's kind of similar to this is Enchanted, which came out in 2007 with Amy Adams and Patrick Dempsey. And like I said, there are a lot of people don't really get the whole time travel aspect, but like I said, it kind of made sense to me the more I watched it. And it's all about faith and destiny and all that stuff. And Meg Ryan, speaking of her, it kind of took me a while to get to, warm up to her character because she starts off like a total bitch throughout the entire film. And then once she kind of gels up to Leopold, you can sort of see like a new side to her. And I kind of know why she's the way she is because she hates her job at marketing and she kind of blames her career for her relationship with Stuart. And yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, I highly suggest you watch it. It's kind of hard to track it down because you have to like rent it or buy it on Amazon Prime. Um, and it's a theatrical cut, like it's not a director's cut. But if you want to watch the director's cut, like I said, you have to watch the Blu-ray version only, or if the DVD is an option as to watch the director's cut or the theatrical cut. But like I said, my advice is to watch the director's cut because it makes more sense. Um, so anything else I can say about this movie? I don't really think so. I don't think there's anything else I can actually say about this movie. But yeah, I give it 7 out of 10. I thought it was a very, very good rom-com. And it is a crying shame that Hugh Jackman isn't starting more rom-coms anymore because this guy was the king of fluff. And he only did 2 rom-coms in Hollywood. He done Someone Like You, which also came out in 2001, and of course this movie. And as well as that, he was in Swordfish as well, which is like a campy thriller with John Travolta and Hal Berry. So he was very busy in 2001. And bear in mind, Hugh was actually 32 years of age and he'd done Kate and Leopold, so he was very, very young at the time. But he'd done the whole Man Out of Time thing so well. I mean, this is actually his first time travel film before he did The Fountain, Depp and Wolverine, and X-Men Days of Future Past. So yeah, I mean, he just believed in the character so well. Um, what else can I say about this movie? Oh yeah, fun fact. So this movie was actually mentioned. Well, it was in development, sorry, since 1997 with Sandra Bullock and Hugh Grant involved. And the original synopsis was basically this scientist called Catherine Coles, and she was a scientist because her father was a scientist as well, so she kind of took over the family business, and she accidentally summons a Viscount from 1875 to modern day New York in 1925. So it starts off in 1875 and then 1925 because the movie was supposed to take place in the 90s. And Leopold, of course, is like, okay, what's going on here? And of course, like in the 2001 version, him and Kate won't see eye to eye, but then of course they kind of fall for one another. And then he has no other choice but to go back in time. And Kate, of course, is like, okay, I can't let you go unless I go with you. And then the first time she goes back, he actually died of natural causes at the age of 80. But then when she went back again, she married him in the end because she was actually 9 months pregnant with their first child. And it was actually a boy called Leo. So she literally named her son Leo after Leopold. But it wasn't really a patch. Sorry, it's my dog barking. It wasn't really a patch on the movie we actually got. Because like I said, there was supposed to be a Sandra Bullock movie, but of course Sandra turned it down because she went on to do Miss Congeniality, and Hugh Grant, of course, then would later work with Sandra Bullock in 2 Weeks' Notice. So I guess it all worked out in the end. But yeah, overall, give this movie a watch. It is Valentine's Day this week, so my advice is to watch the movie, see what you think of it. If you're a fan of Hugh Jackman or Meg Ryan like myself, then you will absolutely love this movie. If you love Pride and Prejudice or Enchanted or Back to the Future, this is for you as well. So yeah, I think that's all I can say about this movie. But yeah, it's a good movie. I loved it, and yeah, that's my video of this movie. Whoever watched the video, thanks for watching, and yeah, take care.